about this technical issue we had. Let me introduce myself. I'm Boyko, and today we're going to talk about an API plugin for nopCommerce that we developed. And before that, I want to say a few words about me and my company. I'm a .NET developer, actually a nopCommerce developer, and I guess most of you are developers here. Any store owners? Okay, no store owners. I'm the only store owner. I'm actually co-founder of nopTemplates, where we create themes and plugins for nopCommerce. And I'll keep this so you can hear it. Okay. And for the last 5 years, I've been working only with nopCommerce, and I am responsible for the plugin development in our company, which is very important because all our teams bundled with at least 10 plugins. So it's an important part of our business, the plugin development, and that's why I'm going to talk about the plugin, the API plugin. And the presentation will be separated in two parts. First, I will present the API plugin. And the second part, I will show you how you can actually use it in your client applications. And it's a great honor for me to be here in front of so many .NET nopCommerce developers, because this plugin is all about you guys. Here, it's about the community. And I really want this workshop to get a lot of questions from you, so that I really want to understand everything that I will show you today, so that you can extend this plugin if you want. For example, if your clients want something new, you can easily understand the code of the plugin and extend it. So it's important to ask questions. If not, something is not clear enough, just raise your hand and ask. So how this plugin, how the idea of the plugin was born. Last year on the nopCommerce conference, we showed a service that we created. It was born out of frustration because we had a lot of Gmail communication with our clients, and we wanted every time when you write with someone to get the information, some insights about this customer that you are writing to. And the only way to do this was to switch between your browser tabs, copy the email of the customer, search for it. Hello? Hello? No one here? Maybe the
Speak louder, it's okay.
Is the microphone working? That's
check. Hello? Hello? Okay. I think the battery is there. Sorry. It's working. Okay. So I have to speak with the microphone. And so we created a plugin, API plugin, but it was not mature enough. So we decided to contribute it to the nopCommerce community. We talked with Andrei. We agreed to create this plugin. The idea was to create it in 2 months, but it turned out to be a lot of more work. So I want you to walk you through the process that we went when creating the plugin, and to show you the steps we had. But before that, let's see what we are here about. The API plugin provides a RESTful API to resources in nopCommerce. It's available officially today for nopCommerce 3.8. It's also available on GitHub, so you can see the code, play with it, give us feedback. Also, it supports 7 resources at the moment. It supports customers, categories, products, product category mappings, shopping cart items, orders, and order items. But it's quite easy to add new ones. So if any one of you create new endpoints, just create a pull request and we will add them to the plugin. So it's already in your hands, not just our hands. And I want to say a few words what is a RESTful API, for those of you that don't know. How many of you know what's a RESTful API? So most of you know, so I'll quickly go to this. But the idea is that it provides access to resources using the HTTP protocol. So it's simple HTTP requests like get, post, delete. You can access resources at a specified location, and you get these resources as JSON, in JSON format. And another feature of the RESTful APIs is that it's stateless as the HTTP protocol. And it's very simple. We use the 4 HTTP methods. And for example, if you want to retrieve a product, you need to make a HTTP GET request to the API products endpoint and provide the ID of the product. For example, here we get product with ID 7. If you want to create a new product, the same for put and delete, absolutely the same, with the difference that in the put request and the post, you actually submit some JSON data to the server. And so what were the challenges that we faced during the development of the plugin? We wanted it to be simple. Simple is very important because if you don't understand the API, it will be hard to use it. So another thing is it should be powerful. It should give you more flexibility to make less requests and get more data. Another thing, most important thing for store owners, which are not in this room, but they are very careful with the security as usual. So it should be secure. Also, it should be well documented and well tested. Why the documentation matters is because if we want to let this API be adopted by many companies that provide services and they want to integrate using the API with nopCommerce, they need to have a good documentation so they know how to do this integration easily. And I will explain in the context of these things what we actually did. The first thing is the simplicity. We tried to follow some of the best practices. Actually, it's a never-ending debate how to create an API. Everyone knows how to create one, but there are some common practices that most of the APIs follow. Like you name your resources, like with plural forms. You use lowercase. You also use snake case. So you use underscore rather than a hyphen when you name your resources. And dealing with relations, I don't know if at the end you see anything, but the idea here is that if you want to get an order item with the second order item of order number 7, you write it like this. You just first write the order, the ID of the order, and specify that you want to get the order items with the second one. It's quite easy actually. Another thing that is important when you create an API is to return proper status. Since it uses the HTTP protocol, we use HTTP status codes. And my favorite one is 200, which means it's okay, everything's fine. But while working with the API, especially when you consume it, you may see some of these status codes. 300 and something means a redirection. 100 and something is just information or status. And most probably you will see 400 something, which means that the problem is in your code. It's not in nopCommerce. For example, if you are not authorized, you will get 401 status code. If something is not found, some resource you're trying to get product number 10 but does not exist, you will get 404 status code. And for anything that you haven't properly formatted, like your JSON is invalid, for example, you will get 422 error. It means unprocessable entity, which means the API does not recognize the data you are sending. And if you see sometimes 500 error, means something's wrong on the server, so you should contact the store owner to see what's wrong. Maybe something is not working. So about the next things is the API parameters. So we created, I'll show you all of them later, but these are some of the most interesting ones. The limit one means that using an API, usually you cannot get all the products. If you have thousands of products, you cannot get all of them, right? So you need to limit the amount of results you get because your JSON that you get will be too large. And this parameter limit allows you to get only, for example, 5 products. The pagination, of course, it's important. You can use this parameter to get, for example, the next 5 products. So everyone is familiar with this. I don't want to spend more time on this. The since ID is very interesting. For example, let's say using the API you've processed 100 products or categories, and you want to start processing the next ones. You remember where you've been, the number of the category, and just say, give me all the categories since category number 100. So in the API will return category 101. The fifth parameter, my favorite one, it allows you to make your HTTP responses quite small. For example, there are many fields in a product, a nopCommerce product, and if you need, for example, only the ID and the name of the product and the price maybe, you can specify these fields with, they are comma separated. I'll give you examples right after this slide. And predicate max and min, it's obvious what they do. Just give you all the products created after a certain date and all products created before a certain date. Any questions so far? Simple. So we want to be well documented, but we didn't want to write it, the documentation. So we used a tool that allows us to auto-generate documentation. It uses the XML comments that you put in your code, and it generates a very nice documentation for you. This documentation is part of the plugin itself. It comes for free, and you can access it by typing just /swagger in your website. I'll keep this. Just remember that this is used only for testing purposes, because I will explain later why, but it's a bit dangerous to leave it on a live website. Just use it on a local machine just to test the API. And now I will show you actually. Let's try this. I have to show some code. Hello. Okay. I hope it's better now. And let's see the plugin actually in action. It's a local nopCommerce, but I'll show it like this. I had a problem with my laptop, so I have to see the screen. I don't see it on my machine. It will be a bit tricky. So I'll start with Visual Studio. Now I'll show you. So this is the plugin. I will explain the code later. But before that, I will start it. Just a second. We will go through the code later, so we will see some code finally. So the plugin should be installed already. Okay. Just log in. Okay, I'll just show you the plugin. Okay, so here in the left side corner, yeah, just a second. Let me try the zoom. So I have it. I have a tool for zooming, so hopefully something works. And okay, so here on the left side, you see. I'll just. So here are the settings of the API plugin. Here is a menu, like a standard integration, and I want to be able to access the plugin from Swagger, and just check this checkbox and save it, and then I can visit the Swagger page. It's actually easier like this, and just type Swagger, and here it is. You see all the endpoints. You can see all the possible all the possible GET requests and the endpoints. You see also the delete and put requests. And let's see, for example, here it also shows you the schema of the response that you will get when you access this resource. And here are all the parameters that you can pass. I don't know if you can see it, but as you can see, the parameters IDs, and this actually allows you to specify the IDs of the categories that you want to get. The limit parameter allows you to get only some of the products. The default one is 50, and you cannot put a bigger number than 250. And let's try it, actually. Let's try, just to see my mouse. So I specify 1 and 2. You just need to believe me. And click try. And I get information about the first category. And you see the ID here. Actually, I can use now the fields parameter. That's why I said it's my favorite. I will get only the ID and the name of the category. So the response is quite. So you can see I get only the fields of the ID and the name field of the category. So my response is quite small. And one interesting thing is that you can also see the actual URL where you make a request. As you can see, it creates a GET request and specify the IDs and fields parameter in the query parameters. And one thing to note, you can see these status codes, 400 and 401. They are automatically generated from our XML comments in the controller, the category controller. So, any questions?
Is there a way to specify sorting?
Yes, some of the endpoints you can.
Because you request like page 2, but how is it sorted?
Yeah. By default, all these endpoints that don't have sorting, they are sorted by ID. So all the products categories are sorted by ID.
Okay.
So, but for this you cannot change. For customers, we can change. Only for some of the points we've made possibility to order them. So, any other questions? Yeah.
You showed that you have the ability to give an ID list. Have you also the ability to give an exclude list?
The question is, can we exclude certain parameters? No, but it's a good practice actually. Most of the APIs allow it. So maybe we can add. I want to exclude some products, not fields.
Not fields. Exclude, for example, some products or some categories that you would like to receive a list of categories and page it, but exclude some categories.
For example, you have.
So where do you specify IDs to products to get from this control?
Just a second, I want to show you something. Actually, there's no way to exclude certain products, but we have some filters like status for some of the endpoints where you can say only published, unpublished. So, but it's not what you want. So now we will go to see the code. Do you want to see any other endpoints? So this is the categories. You have also customers. You always have a count. It's interesting to know that. You can always get the count of all categories, for example. Let me go zoom. And it will return the count of these categories. And here you get a published status. So you can see all published categories or all unpublished ones. The default one at the bottom, I don't know if you can see it, but it's any. So all types of categories will be returned. And that's it. There are no questions. I can continue with the presentation actually. So this is Swagger, and I want to talk about security. This is something that I have to stand up and show you. So most of the APIs nowadays, for example, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, these big players that provide a lot of APIs, they use Open Authentication 2 standard. Anyone familiar with Open Authentication 2? Okay, great. So I'll try to briefly, I don't know if I can briefly, but explain what it is. Actually, it's designed so that the clients of the APIs, their code is much more simple. So the only thing you need is a token. And this token, it's called bearer token authorization. This token contains the scope of the access that you provide to the client. For example, all of you have installed some applications on their phones. You see they ask you for access to your photos, access to your camera. This is just some kind of scope that you allow the client to do with your resources. And the idea of the bearer token is to simplify the access. So once you get an access token, there are two types of tokens, access token and refresh token. The access token provides access to the resources. And once you get an access token, valid access token, you can access the resources. No one can stop you from doing this. So the refresh token, why we have a refresh token in that case? Because the access token sometimes are short-lived. For example, valid only for 1 hour, for 2 hours, and this is done for security reasons. So if someone gets the access token, he can use it only for a limited time. And that's why there is a refresh token that allows you to obtain a new access token when it expires. And the refresh token should be kept on a secret base so no one knows it. And there are several out-of-the-box workflows for obtaining tokens. So we decided to use the code grant authorization flow, which is the most widely used one for APIs. We researched some of the existing APIs and existing e-commerce platforms that provide APIs, and they use this by default. So the code grant authorization flow is the most secure one, and it is especially for web servers. What I mean web server? It means that the client that consumes the API should be accessible somewhere. That's needed because I'll show you actually the diagram right now. It needs to be, there is some kind of a handshake. You don't directly provide access to, you don't directly provide the access token if someone asks for it. You first need to authenticate the user by providing an authorization code, and this authorization code is then used to obtain the actual access token. So there are 2 steps and how they work. You should know, first thing is that the client has 3 parameters. They have an ID, they have a client secret, and they have a return URL. The return URL is a URL that you can access the client. And why you have so many parameters? Because the first time the client requests authorizes, it says the client ID and the callback. And nopCommerce checks in the system if there is such a client. And if there is such a client, it will send an authorization code to the callback URL. So this way you send the code to only someone that you know exists somewhere. And you don't send it to everyone that wants it. And if the client receives this authorization code successfully, they make another request, and they send also the client secret, which is specific for them as well. This authorization code, again the callback URL, and again the client ID. And now, nopCommerce knows that this is the client, really. The secret is valid, the ID is valid, the authorization code that we sent before is valid, and that's the point where we provide the access token and refresh token. And then the client, when he has all this information, he can store it as it's a web server, can store it in a database on a secure place, and make requests to access the resources. For example, get all the products and specify the access token. Any questions? Okay, great. You either not understand anything or everything is clear. So this usually is done by an authorization server inside the API plugin, and I will show you the code later to see how we register an authorization server. So let's talk about some code now. So I already mentioned Swagger, and it's available as a NuGet package, so it was easy to add. But what about the actual web API? How do we return JSON when the client makes requests to us? We cannot use MVC because it's just not designed for machines. MVC web pages and web forms, they're designed for humans. They're designed to return HTML. They're not designed to work with JSON and XML. So Web API fits here, and it allows you to use the same controllers like MVC controllers, but the difference is that we return JSON. And that's why we decided to use Web API 2.0, so it fits better for what we want to do. And so Web API is also available as a NuGet package, so it's easy to add it. But the only problem we had is that Open Authentication 2, the implementation for Microsoft, is only available as a middleware for OWIN. How many of you know what OWIN is? Okay, great. So how do you know already? And I'll briefly explain it. So OWIN, OWIN is by specification host agnostic model for specifying your application. And so you can host OWIN on IIS, you can self-host it, you can host it in a unit test, for example. It's self-agnostic. And the idea of OWIN is to be quite simple. You have these middlewares, like ASP.NET Web API is available as a middleware. You also have the Open Authentication middleware, and you just, in your code, you just configure the middlewares the way you want them to be executed. It's much more simple than a web application, so you have full control of what is executed in each step. And so we had to use OWIN. We had no other chance because we wanted to use Open Authentication. And in order to host OWIN in IIS, you need an HTTP module, which is also available as a NuGet package. And I will illustrate how this works together with nopCommerce. Because we have nopCommerce, which is an MVC application. And we have our plugin, which provides the API stuff. And we want both to work together. We want people that access the API to get their resources, and you want people that want to visit your website to still visit it. And this is how it usually works. OWIN, when you add this NuGet package, it registers an HTTP module that by default adds all the middlewares, like the Open Authentication Web API, in the pre-handler execute event in the application request lifecycle. So if a request comes in, it goes to this steps: authenticate, post-authenticate, authorize, and so on. And it has a step pre-handler execute where you can actually cook your middlewares. And this way, for example, if you register the Web API, all the requests to the Web API will get handled by the Web API and not by the default MVC handler. So this way, if someone requests API products, it will be handled not from the MVC handler, but from the middleware that we have for the Web API. Any questions here? Okay, those things get a bit more complex now. And so we had some other challenges, and it was that nopCommerce by default uses force authentication. And every time you make a request to nopCommerce, there is some code in your global assets, begin request. You've seen this code that creates a guest customer all the time, most of the time. And this was an issue because we don't support actually force authentication. We don't support cookies. We just have simple HTTP requests with just the data we need to send. We want a response back. So we had to register our middlewares, and we also, our authentication server middleware, the server that takes care of the whole authentication process to provide access tokens and so on. And also we registered our custom middleware that needs to handle these cases when the customer should not be authenticated by default, like a guest customer. And then we have, of course, the Web API code executed. And so now I'll show you the code, how we've achieved this. And why I'm showing all this, because I want you to feel comfortable with the plugin and to be able to extend it. When you see the plugin, you will know most of the things already, and it will be easier for you to know how to extend it, how to create your custom endpoints, for example. And now I'll need to show some code, which will be very tricky now. Like this. Let's see how much time we have. Okay, not much. So the API plugin, the resolution is not okay, but it's quite simple. There is only one class you need to know. It's the startup class. This startup class, I don't know if you can see, but this is the actual entry point that Owen will call when nopCommerce starts. So when nopCommerce starts, there is a setting in the web config. This is actually the only thing that the plugin changes during the installation. You should know that and not wonder why it changes the web config. There is this setting which Andre already added in the web config, and we just change it to true so that during the startup of the application, can you see it? Okay. So when you start nopCommerce, it will automatically search for Owen components, and it will pick up the plugin and call it. So this is something to mention because you will wonder why we changed the web config. And here is the startup class. So you have an application in terms of Owen, and you just need to register your middlewares. So we first register our course middleware to handle the cross-browser region policies. I won't pay attention to this one. We just allow all the requests from everywhere to the API. And then we configure the open authentication. And these both are registered on the post-authenticate step that I showed you in the diagram, if you remember. And at the end, we just register the web API. And now I'll show you how it looks like internally. So how we register the open authentication. So there are already classes that provide the open authentication, as I said. And basically you need to specify the options of your authorization server. You specify if you allow insecure HTTP requests, which is currently set to true, just for demo purposes and so that you can play with the plugin. But you can also make this to be false. Another thing is you need to say which is the endpoint where a token will be obtained. This is the token endpoint. And the authorization endpoint. This is the point where the client will ask for a code, the authorization code. And something else here, the access token expiration time. We have a setting, it's configurable, not as a setting in the administration, it's a setting in the code. So currently it's 30 days, but it could be changed. Just a second. And some classes needed for authorization. I will not go through all of them. You can take a look, but just to know that. And we just use, with all this method, use all authorization server and provide the options. And you get authorization server. It's quite simple. Nothing, no rocket science here. And one thing important is that we actually register our own middleware. And this middleware is used because we want to make sure that when the default force authentication kicks in, and we want to make the user like this to be known, not to have a user, because when you're using bearer token authorization, you don't need to have a user authenticated in nopCommerce. That's why we set it to no. This is important because otherwise, if you don't do this, the user will be automatically authenticated. So this is very important. And otherwise, the user will have access to your resources. And we want to authorize the user using a bearer token, not using the force authentication. And of course, we register the bearer token authentication middleware, which actually sees the token and validates it and validates the customer, the client that makes the requests. And that's it about the authorization. And finally, we register the web API. Web API, we create a new server configuration, HTTP configuration, and we register all our endpoints. We register the open authentication. Can you see? Yeah? Okay. The open authentication authorized endpoint, which is used to obtain an access token, authorization code, and we register all the endpoints. For example, customers, we say it should be API customers, and the customer's controller should handle this, and it should return some customers. And the same for all the other endpoints, customer account endpoint, and so on. But I want to show you the controllers, and that's it. It's like an ABC application. And the controllers, for example, the categories controller, you can see the different endpoints. For example, get categories. It has some validation. As you can see, we return bad request if the limit is not valid, and so on. And we have also XML documentation that you can see in Swagger automatically. So we specified. So some information about the response types. So the response type, we have a root object, as you saw, maybe in Swagger. Let me show Swagger again. When you get categories, you have this, you don't have just an array of categories. You have a categories property field that contains an array of all the categories. So in order to handle this, we need to specify the actual response type, and Swagger can give you this nice presentation here. So that's why we use these root objects, and we just specify which is the root property. It's a list of category DTOs. We call all these objects that we return DTOs, data transfer objects, and so the category DTO object, let me find it, it's in the DTOs categories, I'll show you later. Let me see. So the category DTO object, it has all the fields that the category resource will return. So it has a name, an ID, and all these follow the snake case naming convention. So the category template ID has a JSON property, it's category underscore template ID, and so on. And for example, if you want to create new endpoints, you just need to create a controller. You need to create a DTO object. So you just follow the same structure that we have in the existing endpoints. Nothing special here. And we don't have a lot of time. Maybe I want to show you some, to make some requests. If you have any questions, do you want to show you more code here?
Maybe you can show just how a user would send a request and get
Yeah, I'll show this. Okay. So to make things easy for you, we create a sample application. This application is also on GitHub. You can download it. I actually have it. I will run it now. And in this sample application, we illustrate the whole process of going through how you can make a request to obtain an access token and so on, all the steps. So if you are interested, you can see the code. I will actually quickly just debug through it to show you the different steps. It's very simple. We just okay. I need to start Visual Studio in the book so that I can show you. And I will put a breakpoint to get the access token. Just somewhere to click, okay. So the first request, as I said, will send us just the client ID. So we will see now. And I will open the client application, the sample application now. I don't know if I can do it like this. It's possible, right? The client application, I will run it also in the book. And let me put a breakpoint here. In our sample application, we have a controller. We have different methods, and I actually have all the breakpoints, which is great. So we will be hitting, I'll show you. We have this get access token. This is the method that will be called when we make a call back to the client, and it will send us the code. And I've put a breakpoint here so you can see the whole process. So now let's see the application. It's quite simple. For some reason we don't. I will zoom it. So you have a few things here. You have server URL, which is the nopCommerce URL that you need to specify. And I will get it from here. I will get the nopCommerce URL and specify it here. And I need a client ID and client secret. How can I get one? It's quite simple. You just need to go to the administration of nopCommerce. It's already responsive, so it will work. And I actually have it here quite easily. So I'll go to the clients page, and I will create a new client. I will go with sample client, which is just a name, and it already has a client ID, client secret generated for us. So I will copy them and put them in the sample application. Client secret. And this is the address I want to be called to receive the authorization code. So I'll set it to the client so that it knows where to make the call back. And that's it. I just save it. And now, this application, this client, when I click this button, it will make a, I can submit method. We get all the information from the model, put it in the session, because it's sample application. Usually you should put it in the database. That's why we keep it in the session just for demo purposes. And it will come here. And in addition to this sample application, we created an adapter library. You can see here at the top. It's a library that has two classes. It has API client and API authorizer. The API authorizer has some very useful methods that it will build for you, all these URLs that you need to send to request access tokens, for example. So you just specify the client ID, the code, and it will build it for you, so that you don't need to think how to do it. And the API client is just a tiny client that you specify the server, you specify the endpoint, and internally it makes HTTP requests to the server. So you can use it for free. You can just include it in your applications, use this library to be easy for you to obtain tokens and so on. You don't need to write this code. And so we get this data, okay, and here we need to build the. I will just, and we have an authorization URL which you most probably don't see, but yeah, it will make a request. It will make a request to the all authorized endpoint. It will provide the client ID, the redirect URL, and it's important to say that the response type should be a code, which says the authorization server that the client wants to use authorization code grant, and it will also say another parameter which is state, but it's currently not used. But you can use it to enhance the security even more. So this is already built and we will be redirected to there. Hopefully I have breakpoints here. And now we are in nopCommerce. So we're in nopCommerce and we receive a client ID. And we see the client ID. And internally, we just need to specify that we are going to use bearer token identity and specify the client ID in it, so that later we can see the client. And I don't know. Is it okay? So now. Now we are back to the client application, as you can see, and we have managed to return the authorization code. This is a prompt code, and now with this code, with the client ID, the client secret, and the return URL, we make one more request to get the access token. So it's just two requests. It sounds very complex, but it's simple. I wanted to show you that it's quite simple. So we get again from the session the client ID, the secret, the redirect URL, and we already get the code back. And we built this class, this object, which we pass to our authorization manager, which I mentioned in the adapter library that we created. And we pass all this, and it will again make a request to the server to obtain access token, and it should return the access token actually. So I will not debug this anymore. We will see just the result. So finally, we have an access token and a refresh token, and it also adds some additional information, which we actually display on the page, so I don't need to show it here. So here we can see you have the access token, you have the refresh token, you need to store them in your database, and from then on, you can use the resources of nopCommerce using the access token. And it says it expires in seconds, how many seconds. And the most interesting part is actually how we can use this access token to get some customers, for example. And here at the bottom, most of you don't see it, we have a link which when I click, it will call the customer controller. I want to show it quickly. And what will this do? The customer controller will use the API client. I want to zoom it one more. It will break down here. So what it will do? It will create an API client specifying the access token and the address to the server, the endpoint, the server URL only. And then you can use this client like this. You just call the get method and specify some query parameters like the endpoint, and you want to get the first and the last name of the customer, and actually it will return just an object which is JSON format, and you just need to deserialize it into a customer's object. And I want to show you the customer's object. It's nothing special. It's just a class that has customer's property, and it contains an array of customers. And the customer has a first name and last name, because in our application we just need the first name and the last name. And let's see what will happen. So I click the get customers. It actually already made the request to the endpoint. And we will have a response here. We serialize this response. And since the API returns guest customers as well, which don't have first name and last name, I just filter them now. I just say, if it has at least first or last name, include it. And I'll pass these filtered customers to my view, which will show the customers. And when I hit F5, you can see all the customers in nopCommerce. These are the default customers when you install nopCommerce. And what I want to show you, because we don't have a lot of time, actually we're out of time. I have maybe 10 minutes. I will show you how actually you can make requests to the API when you have already an access token. So, I will get this access token. Any questions so far? And I will open a tool. So, have you used Fiddler? Anyone using Fiddler? Okay, great. So I will show you how you can use a client with. So this is Fiddler. It allows you to compose and make requests, for example, to products. And I will show you how it works. I have some already. I will show you. I will zoom it just in a second. I'll just put the access token here. And I will zoom. So you can see it allows you to specify at the top the HTTP method. For example, here it's a put request, the endpoint. You can also specify the parameters there. And you see that you can see this authorization bearer field in the header that we specify. It's just the bearer token, so that the server can obtain this bearer token, validate it, and grant resources, access to the resources. And now we will create a new product. I'll show you how we can create a new product. And because I'm out of time, I will show you something actually ready. I prepared some sample code. So just a second. So I want to create a new product. And I already So let's first get all the products to see that it's working. it complains for the bearer token, and for body should be empty. So you can see that here we get a response with all the products in nopCommerce, with all the information about them, and I will create a new product, and let me create a new product. So in order to create a new product, you need to create a post request, right? And you need to specify the information about the product. I'll show you, I will zoom it. So what I do, I want to create a new product. It's, I found some images on the internet for a snowboard and put them here like this. I specify the images, an array of images with their source. So the API supports this. You can specify the path to the image where you want nopCommerce to download it and add it into the system. So we'll create a new product named Skate Banana, add some full description like great snowboard, some short description, add some images to it. And you will see that nopCommerce will create a request to get these images, and we'll add a product into the system. So let me show you. I selected post, and I just say execute. As you can see in Fiddler, it showed that nopCommerce made 3 more requests here to get these 3 images. But you don't see this. You actually you get you see it. You don't see it. You see that we returned the API, returned HTTP 200, which means okay. Some of the APIs returned 201, which means created, but we returned 200. And it means the product is created, and you get all the information about the product here in Fiddler. And let's see the product in the system, actually. Is it there? So I'll open. I won't find easy this product, so maybe I can just update it to show on the homepage. Let's do this. So the product, I just need the ID of the product. It's 46. It's the ID of the just created product. It's 46. The API returns it. So I'll use this ID, and I will want to update this product and set the shown homepage property to true so that it appears on the homepage. So all of us can see it. And just a second. So what we're going to do, 46, I just say product 46. I'll change the HTTP method to be put. Put is for updates, and I'll say let's update just. I don't want to update everything in the product. I want to update just one field, and it's. I will have to delete all this. You'll see it very well. I just want to. The good thing is that we follow the snake naming convention, so I know that show underscore on underscore on home underscore page will be exactly what the property is. So I'll set it to true, and what I do is just execute this. I want to show you first what we did. So I said this product, update only this field. No other fields will be changed. We will update only this field. You don't need to send the whole product again, which is something we spent a lot of time implementing. It was very tricky to implement this, but we managed to do it. and we just update only this field of the product. And I make a put request, and the product should be shown on the home page already. Let's zoom out and refresh. And you can see the product is here. It does not have a price. I can put some price on it. Then I go in Fiddler and say specify. Okay, I will write just from scratch. Price. So I want some price to this product, and again update it to have some price. And if you visit the product page, you will see that it already has a price. So it's very, very powerful to use the API. One thing to show, because we are out of time, if you have any questions, please ask. One interesting thing to show is that you can specify images in this image with a URL, but actually the API returns the images in base 64 format. So when you make a request from Fiddler and the returned product has all the images in base 64 format. I won't show it actually. I want to show you how you can reorder, for example, the images of this product. You can do that as well with the API. And I have already some code snippet here so that we know that. But before that, I need to know the IDs of these images so that I can specify them. So first thing to do is to make a GET request again. I will say GET product 64, remove the body, and just get it. 46, sorry. And the request is this one. If I open it in raw format, you will see that it's truncated because it's too large. You can remove this from Fiddler, and it will show you. It will show you all the images, the 3 images, with their position. You will see the images, and in the attachment field, you will get base 64 of the image. And you have the position of the image and the ID of the product image. It's not the ID of the image in the database, it's the ID of the mapping, of the product image mapping. This is because you can change, for example, the position of this. We don't probably have time to do this right now, but I can show you how you can leave only certain images. For example, if you want to delete 2 of them and leave only this one with ID 56, I will do it now. 56. So in Fiddler, we'll compose, put a product, and I want only the image with ID 56. Is it okay? Let me check. Tricky. So I have an array with 1 image only, which is fine. And I want this position to be 5, but I'll just execute. What will happen? You know. I specify only 1 image. I want to change the position of this image. What will happen with the rest of the images? Yes, they will be deleted. So if you don't specify the ID of the image, API means, okay, you're telling me to update the images of this product. And you say, this product should have only image with ID 56, and all the rest will be deleted. So I will do this. I have an error. It's unprocessable entity, which means that something is wrong. Okay, I don't have. the guys in front spotted that I don't have a semicolon here. As you can see, we get an error. I don't know actually, but if you actually could see, you couldn't see. You can see that we get 422 error, which means unprocessable entity. Something is wrong with our JSON. I corrected it, so now it should work. And when I execute this, it says OK. And let's see what happens with the product. Yeah, we have only one product, one image left. This way, you can also delete all the images. If you send an empty array, it will delete all the images. So basically how it works, if you specify a field, it means the API understands it like, I want to change this. If it's empty, it will delete it. If you don't specify something, it will not touch it. So only the things that you want to change, you can send only them in your post put requests. And that's it. I'm out of time already. I wanted to show you so many things, but I couldn't. Questions?
Does that mean that your API is bypassing all possible business rules that are in the system? It's acting directly to the database?
It basically follows the logic of the administration controllers in nopCommerce. So it has validation. So, for example, you cannot create a product without a name. So if you try to create a product, just submit an empty product with nothing. It will return an error and tell you that you need a name, at least a name. So you need to specify a name. This is what nopCommerce requires in the administration. If you don't specify a name, you cannot create a product. Everything else, you will get the default values that you will get if you create it from the administration of nopCommerce. If you create a product just with a name, all the rest of the fields will be filled with default values. So, did I answer your question?
What about events? Do they fire also? For example, if we update status of one order, will the events be fired?
What? Will the...
Will the events be fired? Not
Yes. All the events, the question was, if we create a product, for example, I'll show you the code.
For the order?
Yeah, for everything. No. If you, I mean...
All the four.
If you create a product, for example, but we raise all the events that nopCommerce raise. If you create an order, you cannot create an order from the administration, right? So order created will be fired.
Okay, you can change status. You have the shipping, so what the status?
It will just send order updated, maybe. I'm sure about the products and categories, but for orders, I'm not sure. I need to check. You can check later. But for products, it will raise an event, so everyone subscribed. NopCommerce will just be updated. As you can see, we changed the images, and they were already changed in the front end because the cache was cleared. If we don't raise these events, no one will know to clear the cache with the pictures. So, any other questions? Yeah.
Yeah, previously you showed this larger URL where you dive into an object. And the order with line number 12, or what was the example?
Yeah.
Can you do the same thing with images, as just shown? So just set the order property of this particular image.
Yes, you can.
And then the other ones will be untouched.
Yeah, I wanted to show you this, but we're out of time.
Yeah.
To change the order of the images. So first image gets last, for example. Okay, thank you very much.